our week on this Monday morning, and what a gorgeous trifecta of weather. Friday, Saturday, and yesterday, just absolutely picture perfect, gorgeous, comfortable temperatures. Beautiful, beautiful yesterday. A lot of whales out there beyond the Isles of Shoals. Got some video I'll post on our social media pages. Hope you're having a good start to your Monday. We do have some, wet stuff coming in Wednesday and Thursday, but enjoy today and tomorrow, looking pretty good. And J-Doc on the boards. You have a good weekend, buddy?
Next question.
Really? Well, this too shall pass. All right, as we get going this morning, we'll tell you what's going on. Middle East, things are definitely quieter, but how long will that last? Oil is down. Gas prices are up here. Markets are up. It's kind of a mixed picture. You know the deal. It's nothing new, and we'll hear from one of our leading economic thinkers, Doug Tengden, this hour. Some of the other news talk happening on our Monday. We're going to come back to this, but it's a subject of our poll question up on X at the Pulse of an H, and has to do with our first in the nation presidential primary. Now, a lot of you folks who have decided to move to New Hampshire in recent years probably don't know much about it. Probably don't know much about New Hampshire either, other than we have no income or sales tax, a pretty cool state motto, and you wanted to move here as one of the best states in America to live in. I get it. I'd leave New York and California, Connecticut, New Jersey, and Massachusetts as well, even Maine these days, financially speaking. But we've had a pretty proud tradition, an incredible tradition, and one of our next guests will give us a little bit of the history. Neil Levesque, Institute of Politics, Executive Director of St. Anselm College. He's kind of the curator of all this, but let me just give you the gist of it. Bill Clinton would not be president if it were not for New Hampshire's first in the nation presidential primary, going first before other states in the presidential selection and vetting process. Bill Clinton would not be a two-term president. He came in second here, but it made him a better candidate. Many others have been the same. G.W. Bush, I could go on. And, the history, Ronald Reagan, just right through respecting New Hampshire's presidential primary. And this last time around, when Joe Biden was president, the National Democrats screwed over New Hampshire and ignored us and would not put us first in the schedule and started it with South Carolina. The problem is New Hampshire has a law. The Secretary of State here will set the nation's primary first, no matter what, ahead of other states. But what the Democrat National Committee on Friday, this past Friday, while a lot of people were thinking about a beautiful summer weekend, they voted. They voted big time against New Hampshire, and it was all about ethnicity and race and what states had this percentage and all that. It was rather remarkable, and they voted rather overwhelmingly to not let New Hampshire in their calendar go first, and South Carolina, Nevada. And the amazing thing is this. We have to go first. We will, but this is what they're going to do. And you tell me if they're the party of democracy and voting. They're going to punish. They can punish financially and otherwise. The state of New Hampshire, if a governor or a presidential candidate comes up into New Hampshire in 2027 after the midterms and speaks at St. Anselm College and comes on my show or runs some advertising up in New Hampshire, which they have every right to. Hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm a Democrat. I'm running for president. They can fine. The DNC will threaten to punish that candidate for coming up here before South Carolina. And, here's the interesting thing. Is that an open party? Is this the same party that just with 500 people put in the next Graham Plattner, U.S. Senate candidate, Democrat in Maine, Troy Jackson? Is it the same party that took out former President Biden and anointed Kamala Harris without an open contest? Is that the same party? It talks about free and open elections, don't even have to show a license, and yet they manipulate and choose their leaders. Isn't that interesting? And then they threaten New Hampshire's primary and candidates who want to come up here. Where's the outrage? Where's the outrage from leading political and historic, people, business leaders in New Hampshire, political leaders? Jeanne Shaheen, the retiring senator, she's got nothing to lose. They should be all over the DNC. You're not going to threaten democracy in New Hampshire. You're not going to threaten candidates financially if they come up here ahead of another state running for president. We've been doing this for decades. We do it very well. We have one of the highest, if not the highest, voter participation percentage in the country. And a lot of people say, Jack, calm down. What does this matter? What does it matter if New Hampshire doesn't go first in the presidential primary, Jack? It's over. It's over. Well, you know what? Sometimes when you got something good, you got to fight to keep it. You just can't lay down and be complacent and fatalistic and say, well, we had no power to do anything about it. I haven't heard a lot of outrage from leading Democrats in New Hampshire at their own party. I didn't the last time either. I didn't hear it. You know, the ironic thing is that they just let old Joe Biden run up here and actually shake hands and go into a diner with the media and public ask him questions. They would have seen he was too old. They would have done themselves a favor and they would have had a real primary, and someone probably other than Kamala Harris would have been the candidate, and they might have won. But they didn't do that. They hand chose. So it's very hypocritical. But where's the outrage? Where's the outrage from political leaders in New Hampshire, especially Democrats at their own party? Why should we just lay down and take this? You know, New Hampshire is known for maybe the former home of the old man of the mountain, beautiful, small, physical state, our presidential mountains and all that. But they really, no, New Hampshire's known for the live free or die motto. Number 2, no income, no sales tax. One of the few states, the only one up here in New England. And number 3, national politics. That's what New Hampshire's known for, if you had to say in a nutshell. And people moving here and spending a lot of money for houses, but national political prominence and participation. New Hampshire's had more presidents and presidential candidates over decades, really going back to when the first primary and why it was set up and how it's been maintained. And people like Bill Gardner, former Secretary of State, now Dave Scanlon, have done a remarkable job protecting. Other times, the Republican National Committee and Democrats tried to take away our primary, and they fought like heck, and they succeeded. But this time around, it was trouncing. Really, no one speaking up for New Hampshire on that Friday call with Democrats. We're not diversified enough. There's not enough diversity here. They've written us off. We're not this. We're not that enough. We're not this. And yet we're the best state to move to in America. Okay, how do you explain that? So it's one thing for the DNC to say we're not going to go first up there, our own calendar, but you don't threaten candidates if they want to come up here. You don't punish them, and you don't threaten New Hampshire. Who the hell do you think you are? Really? You're a bunch of, the way they were acting Friday, it's a bunch of AOC, socialist-led, ethnicity-looking, and the reality is they don't even really care about what they pretend to be. It's just New Hampshire is too what? It's not diversified enough, and yet we're the best state to move to in America. Oh, my goodness. So where's the outrage? And our poll question up on X this morning and some commentary, but I'm going to ask the question. We are at the Pulse of an H. Do you think more should be done to fight for New Hampshire's first in the nation presidential primary? Yes or no? Do you think more should be done? And I think more people need to speak up, make a fight. You got nothing to lose. Stand up to your political thugs in your own party. Don't be pushed around. Don't dictate to New Hampshire. We've been doing this a long time, and it's very pure here. Candidates really need to go out and press the flesh. And if we didn't have this primary, you wouldn't have this process at all. And everyone talks about elections and free and open elections. Well, have them. Don't say it. Have them. Otherwise, you go to another state, run some TV ads and some radio ads, and no one's ever going to meet the candidate, and that's the future of your presidential politics in America. Pretty blank and pathetic. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Neil Vec will tell us a little bit about the history of this. And where's the outrage? I'm not hearing it. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Jack Keith, J-Dog, and the boards. Back in a moment.
Register now for the Pulse of New Hampshire.
Institute of Politics is going to be checking in if he's already there. Oh, he's on. Thank you. Neil Vec, it just sort of slowly sunk in over the weekend on me, with me, beautiful weather and all that, out and about. And I'm just like, I'm rather amazed at how complacent and almost like no offense, the French army in a lot of contests, never really fighting. Okay, you can take our city. It's okay. Where's the outrage? Where's the muscle of the Democrats in New Hampshire pissed off at their own DNC for saying New Hampshire's not going to be first in our schedule, and the threatening candidates if they dare to come here? Who the hell do they think they are? And they, this is the party that talks about free and open elections. When Bernie Sanders won the primary up here, the DNC made sure Hillary was the nominee. They picked candidates in Maine. They picked Harris, and they talk about free and open elections. Don't even have to show your license. And then they threaten New Hampshire. Where's the outrage, Neil, from political bosses and elders in New Hampshire that that's not going to happen? Where is it? I haven't heard it yet, and it's Monday morning at 9:21.
Well, I'll tell you, the Democratic National Committee right now, I think, is basically imploding. The chairman is going through his own big problems. There's several big news stories over the weekend: temper tantrums, HR complaints, not being able to raise money. But this attack on state elections like New Hampshire's is basically brought about for two reasons. The first is it's a lot about race, and the discussion on Friday in their committee hearing was all about race. And the second aspect is they do not want people to pick candidates. And, in New Hampshire, we have candidates, we see who we like, and we vote for them, right? This is something that party bosses in Washington, D.C. do not want. Or, as I could say, the chairman of this committee, by the way, James Roosevelt, was actually in Canada summering when he phoned in his work and opposition to the state-run election in New Hampshire. So this is it's going to be a big problem, I think, for the Democratic National Committee, because I think you have this really frustrated group of Democrats. They're called voters, and they want to be heard, and the national parties are not doing that, and there's a lot of frustration. I think some of that's coming out as we see people like AOC, Mandami, people like that are really getting a lot of the attention of voters, and the National Party doesn't want that. That's why they're trying to make it so that candidates don't campaign here in New Hampshire. Can you imagine telling a presidential candidate that they can only campaign in so many states that the Democratic Party tells them that they can campaign in, or participate in debates in a democracy in certain states and not in others? This is outrageous, and this is what they're doing. And it's a real tragedy. I think that moving forward, I think that candidates will come here. We will have a state-run election. And if the Democrats choose to not count the votes of Democratic voters here in New Hampshire, that's going to have a very bad look in 2026 or 2028.
Yeah, Neil, I know you're a diplomatic person. You're in a diplomatic community. You're a diplomatic institute, bipartisan, nonpartisan, but probably no one outside of myself doing this show over the years with interviews, no one has been at the center of more events because of our presidential primary for decades than you. So I know you don't want to rock the boat, but why is it just me, ticked off and pointing this out? Where's the Democrat Party of New Hampshire press conference this morning blasting the DNC for this and then threatening the democratic process here? Where is the outrage from Ray Buckley, Jeanne Shaheen, Maggie Hassan, Chris Pappas, Maggie Goodlander, the leaders in the State House, the State Senate? Or do they really quietly don't give a damn? And I'm asking straight up, Neil.
Well, they definitely give a damn. And
where's the outrage? I haven't seen.
Well,
I saw Chris Pappas posted a social media video. Where's the real muscle? Like, in the past when former governors and governors would get together and talk about Bill Gardner protecting at all costs the first in the nation presidential primary. What, did we just reach a point where you don't give a damn?
I think some of the people that should give a damn too are also people like Pete Buttigieg. I mean, Pete Buttigieg is a candidate that did well here in New Hampshire, but is not going to do well and didn't do well in South Carolina. And this whole decision that the Democrats did on Friday is really a poison pill for his campaign. He's done. He's going to have a really hard time running for president in South Carolina. Secondly, I think that it doesn't bode well for the fact that people like AOC, Mandami, people like Bernie Sanders have been and are now doing very well according to the voters here in New Hampshire, according to polling. And all of a sudden they're trying to take away New Hampshire's right to vote. Remember, our voter turnouts are sometimes at least 2 to 3 times as much percentage-wise than they are in South Carolina or Nevada. They're picking states, they're trying to pick states that voters don't even vote in because endorsements by labor unions or political party bosses make a huge difference. So they're trying to cook the books, essentially. And we'll see whether or not they succeed. I think that a state like South Carolina, you get the endorsement of Jim Clyburn and you win the Democratic primary there. And that's been historically. That is why when Biden was too frail to campaign here in New Hampshire, to take questions from voters,
right,
they opted to go to South Carolina because they knew that there wasn't going to be any questions. It was.
Oh no, I know. And you actually shot himself in the foot because if they had exposed, they could have had a real primary and someone probably other than Harris would have been the nominee. I just, look at, again, it's your livelihood. It's not my direct livelihood. It's part of my show, but we do a lot of stuff here. It's your direct livelihood. And I look at the history of WMUR TV and my show now here and all the primaries, and I'm surprised they're not more worked up about it because I got to tell you, there's a lot of other ancillary benefit that goes along with a primary, and that's advertising. But the point of it is protecting New Hampshire's history. And we're going to go first. The Secretary of State, Dave Scanlon, will pick by statute. New Hampshire will go first ahead of South Carolina. But the DNC should not be threatening candidates if they come up here financially or is threatening New Hampshire delegates. And that's where I'm surprised we don't see a fight. But you know what? I've never been afraid, Neil, to fight alone. So I'll fight it. I'll make the fight and I'll point out hypocrisy. And I'll tell you one thing about New Hampshire. And you know this. There are some things that make us different and special. And why last week we were voted the best state to move to in a country. And people may think having no income or sales tax doesn't matter. Oh, it matters a whole heck of a lot. People may not think going into July 4th for our 250th that our state motto doesn't have real meaning. Some people think it's a little aggressive. Oh, you're wrong and you can move tomorrow if you want to leave here and go back to New York. Live free or die. Death is not the worst of all evils. Live free or die motto. No income, no sales tax. And we have national prominent political history here. Presidential visits, presidential candidates. This is a state, even if we didn't pick them, we helped make them. We helped vet them. We helped show if a candidate wasn't any good. And we made this process better. We also have elections where people know that night who won. They aren't counting votes for 3 weeks. New Hampshire is a pretty good, original, pure, democratic electorate, civic engagement state. And if you don't fight to protect it, you lose it. Just like your freedom. That's my thought.
Well, I think if Biden had come to New Hampshire, I think the things that were exposed during that campaign would have emerged earlier. We would have had a true primary. They would have had a strong candidate to go against the Republican, and they didn't. And, we know what the results were. So if Democrats are mad about Trump, a lot of it is probably the fact that they really didn't conduct a good election to send the strongest candidate forward to take on the Republicans. And when party bosses choose candidates, this is what happens. And so it's not good. This primary situation is not good for Democrats, and they should be outraged.
Okay, well, thank you. You should too. Thanks, Neil.
Okay.
Why don't you have an event at the Institute about this? All right. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the pulse of NH Up at X. Brad Card, he knows a little bit about presidential primaries and history here, co-host of Contact Politics. We'll talk about it this week. He'll be coming up a little bit later on. Doug Tengden will talk about the markets. Markets up, oil prices down this morning, quieter in the Middle East, but that too may change. Gas prices are up, though, over $4 a gallon for regular here. Couple of busy lakes and boat fires up in Alton, that restaurant fire. Fortunately, no one hurt or killed, but other places. A busy weekend for crews out on the waterways. We'll have an update. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Jack Heath, J-Dog on the boards. Back in a moment.
News. Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
Well, we got a lot going on. We'll update you on the economy and quieter in the Middle East. Beautiful weather. Brad Card, regular political contributor and all-star, co-host of Contact Politics, guest host as well, and joining us on a Monday morning. Good morning, Sir Brad.
Hey, Jack.
Well, we just had your buddy Neil Levesque on and talking about the National Democrats, the DNC, on Friday's vote to ignore New Hampshire's primary, once again starting their presidential contest for their candidates in South Carolina and Nevada, and then even threatening, I guess, indirectly or directly, any presidential candidates who violate their calendar and come up to New Hampshire. And is that a very, by the way, is that democracy? Is that democracy, Brad? Is that how they handpick? Is that democracy? I'm just curious.
Well, evidently, the Democrats do a lot of things right now that make me scratch my head. So,
And Brad, I know realistically that we're probably powerless as a state to fight to protect our primary. Now, you know, and I know Secretary of State now, Dave Scanlon, by legislative statute, has to set New Hampshire's primary first. So he'll wait and look for the dates like South Carolina, February, whenever, and he'll set New Hampshire first. But if the DNC threatens their candidates from coming here, it's like having a golf tournament and you don't have the field of players. You have the tournament, but you don't have the field. So we probably can't change the DNC. You know, we're not, quote unquote, diversified of enough of a state for them, even though we're the best state to move to in America last week, named ahead of Massachusetts and other states. But should Democrat powers to be, political powers to be in New Hampshire, be fighting the DNC, basically saying, you don't threaten and tell us how we have our primary, or should they just lay down and take it? Because I haven't seen a lot of outrage.
you know, Jack, it's a lack of respect for New Hampshire. It's a lack of, Democrats should be saying this. The reality is it's a law in New Hampshire. So therefore, the Democrats really don't respect the New Hampshire law to begin with. They don't respect the process that has afforded a lot of people, including Bill Clinton, to be able to come back from, you know, his political demise, basically, and become president of the United States. It's got a long, storied, rich history. It is a state that you can campaign in reasonably. You can meet voters, and you can make all the arguments that you want about diversity. And that's why there's processes that go in place. And that's why after New Hampshire, you go to South Carolina. I mean, look, there was a process that's been working, and Democrats have just cut the legs out of New Hampshire. And yeah, I'd like to see more outrage by the elected officials in New Hampshire, especially the federally elected officials.
Don't you think it would have been proper this morning for Jeanne Shaheen, Maggie Hassan, Chris Pappas, and Maggie Goodlander, the federal representatives with the most clout, and Ray Buckley, just to have a joint something this morning saying this is not acceptable. This is not New Hampshire's democracy. We don't get threatened by our own party, or do they just quietly, you know, blank and moan and let it go?
Yeah, you know, there's an awful lot of talk federally about election integrity and the process and respecting the process, and then they go along and they just go along to get along based on what Washington D.C. Democrats decide. It's, you know, it's bad because the primary process in New Hampshire works because the state is small, and it's a state that you can compete in.
Right.
I mean, elections are very expensive. In New Hampshire is relatively inexpensive in comparison.
Right. And by the way,
and
Brad,
you can meet the voters.
By the way, Brad, you know this. A nobody can run hard in New Hampshire and become a somebody and earn it. You know, Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter is a good example, right?
But it's also had a good process to shake out people that can withstand the rigors of a presidential campaign. So it's not like it's been, okay, only New Hampshire, it works only in New Hampshire. It's a process, and it's worked. It's not going to always pick the person that's going to become president, but it's going to battle test them. Which is part of the process.
Well, I know someone you know very well, George W. Bush, sat in his hotel room in Manchester, New Hampshire, watching New Hampshire's primary results come in. I heard this firsthand. You might have been there. And the late John McCain kicked his butt. I think it was like 19 points. And it made Bush wake up and become a better candidate and become president.
Well, it does. It really makes candidates do better. Underdogs can win. But it doesn't mean they're going to win the process. It just means that they can help drive debate. They can help drive the agenda for the elections, and it gives the voters of New Hampshire a real opportunity to participate. You know, they always said, it's been a common reference that they haven't made their mind up yet because they've only met the candidate, 3 times.
Now we know
and they want to meet them more.
You've commented a lot on the podcast, Contact Politics, and the show, Brad. You know that the Republican Party here and nationally, for better or for worse, is the party of Donald Trump. He's the leader of the Republican Party, locally and nationally. I think you'd agree, and that might be at times gratifying and at times frustrating, but that's the reality. It's tough to swim against that, especially in the primary. And we've seen these primaries. Brad, who's the Democrat Party right now nationally? I'm trying to figure it out. I looked at Maine. They were willing. One thing that no one talked about in the Graham Plattner debacle is I firmly believe, even with the latest accuser who came forward alleging rape against him from a past relationship, I believe that Plattner had if he had maintained a 12-point lead over Senator Collins, I personally think they would not have eaten him up. I think they only got rid of him because he had pulled even in the polls, and they knew that he was not going to beat her. Now that's my take. Then you look at AOC in the most recent UNH survey, not poll survey. She's the most preferred national presidential candidate for Democrats in New Hampshire preference. AOC. Wow. Not Pete Buttigieg, not Elizabeth Warren, not Gavin Newsom, AOC. So you see all the socialists running and the anger and the far, far left. Who is the Democrat Party right now and who's in charge? And I asked that straight up.
That's a really good question, Jack. The Democrat, I think that the Democrat socialists have hijacked the Democrat Party. I'm not going to be an extremist and say that is the voice of the Democrat Party, but they're certainly making their mark.
Yeah,
and they're intimidating mainstream Democrats. Which, look at the same somewhat happened with Freedom Caucus guys, with Republicans, and then MAGA. Quite frankly, the MAGA wing of the party kind of took over the mainstream Republican Party. But the Democrat Socialist Party, take a look at what they want. The corporations should not be held privately; they should be held by the government. Think about that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Think about doing away with prisons. Think about doing away with police, getting rid of ICE. Having no borders, secure borders.
You turn the country into a third world country in a New York minute.
This is where their party is shifting, and this is where candidates are actually winning in Democrat primaries. So that should be very troubling for Democrats.
Right.
I mean, a Jeanne Shaheen, in my opinion, would not fit in that Democrat Party.
Right.
And I think that it's a shame. I see the parties being hijacked.
Yeah.
Does it open up the door for a third party?
You and I had
very difficult to do.
Former Congressman Dick Swett in the 2nd District in New Hampshire. He got elected. He said he couldn't even win a primary in his own party in New Hampshire anymore.
Well, and he's right. I mean, it's sad. Look, I worry about it with we've talked about it. I've worried about it with the MAGA wing. We're seeing it unfold a little bit right now in Congress. We have a $95 billion reconciliation bill that Republicans passed along party lines, and it's not paid for. And for years, all these Freedom Caucus guys who forced John Boehner out, forced Paul Ryan out, and forced Kevin McCarthy out because things weren't being paid for and that we were racking up deficits. Republicans just passed a $95 billion reconciliation bill that is not paid for. And now we're questioning whether or not it's going to get through the Senate, and there's going to be a lot of changes to that. But there are conservatives in the Senate that are really uneasy about passing a bill that adds that much more money to the deficit.
Mm-hmm.
So look at both parties are undergoing big changes. I think Democrats are going through a bigger change, and I think the Democrats are. I think we've talked about it before. Are Democrats going to win the House? I think Republicans have a real good chance to keep the House now, when a couple months ago I didn't.
Really?
And the reason why is because of the Democrat Party.
Well, the other
Democrats
thing is
the best things that happen to Republicans.
I know the president's on his way to Michigan today, and I think focus on the domestic economy like yesterday might make a difference. All right, Brad, we'll catch you this week. Contact Politics, Brad Card. Make it a good Monday. Thank you. All right, when we come back, Doug Tengden, World Market Advisors. The markets are up, oil prices are down, but gas prices are up. What's next? Back in a moment.
107.
of New Hampshire. You're listening to Good Morning New Hampshire with Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
All right. Beautiful, beautiful start to our week. And Friday, Saturday, Sunday, gorgeous weather. I'm going to post on our show page that I use for my show a great picture of humpback whales in front of the shoals yesterday. Calm waters. They were everywhere out there. Beautiful, beautiful. Hope you had a good weekend, whatever you were doing. Doug Tengden, I think you were doing some hiking.
Yeah, I was up in the mountains. It was absolutely glorious. I totally agree. It was a little bit warm down in the valley, but up on the ridgeline, it was gorgeous.
All right, worldmarketadvisors.com, economic expert Doug. Markets are up, oil prices are down, gas prices are up. Things are quieter for now in the Middle East. I'm still trying to read this. You and I had some back and forth the other day. People seem a little tentative and uncertain again, but where the heck is this economy at, Doug?
Well, I think what we have is a fairly strong economy. When you look at all of the factors, what strikes me is that incomes have been incredibly stable, just nominal incomes. People's average income has been stable. Employment has been stable. Incomes have been growing, not crazily growing, but growing gradually. And that's driving earnings, which is driving the stock market.
And that's pretty much it. But
That's
the problem,
pretty much it. You know, there are problems in the wings. You know, we have a $2 trillion deficit and we have a $2 trillion discretionary budget. People say, "Oh no, Doug, the budget is like $7.5 trillion." Yeah, $5.5 trillion of that is mandatory. $1 trillion of interest and $4.5 trillion of entitlements roughly matches the $5.5 trillion of revenue we have. So we have a budget deficit that's equal to our discretionary budget. You know, if this were in a novel, they'd reject it. You couldn't make it up. It's too pretty.
Yeah.
It's so clear.
Well,
we're not spending within our means. We're trying to spend our way to prosperity. I just was looking up the great Warren Rudman, saying, where is he today?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting. No one's talking about the $40 trillion debt or Social Security being having to take a haircut in 5 years if we don't do something. No one running for Congress or the White House talks about that.
Yeah, and you have them on your show. Ask them, what are you going to do in 7 years when Social Security goes to deficit, and it's mandatory that there be a 20% cut in deficit.
Yeah, I do, and I'm going to. Oh, believe me, I'm going to ask every one of them, both sides. Yeah. And the thing is, though, Doug, it's actually 6 years, 2032.
Right.
But you mentioned
it used to be like in the dim dark future. Oh, we'll worry about that when we get to it. Now it's on top of us.
Yeah. You said that incomes are holding steady, but yet prices seem to be going up at a higher percentage than people's income is going up.
That's right. Inflation has been volatile. You know, so it spiked up post-COVID. It went down dramatically post-COVID. It went back up with both tariffs and the war. It went back down as oil prices went down. The oil prices are down today. People are looking through the price spikes, particularly having to do with oil prices, and they're saying, you know, in general, inflation has been in a downward trend. People in the Fed Reserve are saying, is this going to bleed into the core inflation and inflation expectations? And I think inflation expectations are a bit of mumbo jumbo, but that's another story. But so I think they're going to stay on hold and sit on their hands for this meeting. But the commentary will probably be hawkish. We'll probably have a couple of hawkish dissents, and that will put a certain wet blanket on the market for temporarily. But the market can't get over the fact that profits are growing at a record pace. They're driven not just by AI spending, but by AI implementation. Employment has been steady, even though the labor force is not growing dramatically. It all has to do with productivity. And everybody's looking to this productivity miracle having to do with AI and saying, okay, now's the time to show me. And I think we're going to see some of that in the second quarter earnings report. All
right. Thank you, Doug, and enjoy Monday. I guess Wednesday, Thursday, maybe getting some probably needed rain, and then hopefully back to the good stuff. Thank you, Doug. WorldMarketAdvisors.com.
Jack, you have a great week.
All right, our poll question up on X this morning has to do with New Hampshire's first in the nation presidential primary. Should more be done to try and save it or respect it more with national Democrats? Yes or no? That poll question's up. And J-Dog, I'm not sure if you want to go back to Friday or not. I'm not sure on the poll, or we can give it in the top of the next hour. We get Mike Dennehy will be joining us, by the way, Brad. Anna Brown off this morning, but Mike Dennehy will be talking about some presidential primary history. Reminder, J-Dog, a week from tomorrow, right? If I have the date right, is that August 4th? Right? I think it is, right?
Yes.
We'll be live. I'll be live from the military campus for veterans and Easter SEALs in Franklin, New Hampshire, as they kind of officially unveil phase 2. And they're going to have us there live, and so many wonderful efforts going on, and that's going on as well. And we have great stuff coming up. That's going to be an ongoing, really wonderful resource for veterans, with everything from peer-to-peer veteran groups and different nonprofits all housed there. So phase 2 will be live next Tuesday, August 4th, and we'll get Renee Plummer on soon again, and she's working on lights over Mount Washington for a number of days to as we get closer to 9/11. We'll talk about that, and always an ongoing mission to thank our veterans and support our veterans with the wonderful, wonderful nonprofits out there that are making a huge difference for veterans and their families. And it's not a 1 or 2 day holiday, a thing a year. We try and make a big difference year round because it's needed.
Poll question from Friday was, are you concerned with an outbreak of the parasite Cyclospora? 75% saying no, 25% saying yes. So except 25% doesn't want to eat lettuce.
Well, I was reading an article over the weekend about the Taylor lettuce day of de Mexico, of Mexico, the big, I guess, produce supplier to places like Taco Bell. And it was confusing because I think the CDC or the FDA had made a ruling. They made a direct trace from some of the contaminated lettuce there to back to that farm or produce being produced and exported from Mexico. And then they said there was a false finding, but they still maintain the original. So there's a lot of confusion, but seems to have made, and I'm not sure it's waning right now. I think it might be a little bit, but there's always something, right? Just when that goes away, we'll get back to the killer bees or hornets or mosquitoes, whatever the next one is. All right. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google, play the Pulse of an H. We have a beautiful day for you out there on this Monday. Hard to believe. We're 27 days into July. Let's slow it down. What a weekend this was to be in the mountains or on the water, fresher salt. Gorgeous weather Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Still nice out there today. Going to be pretty okay tomorrow. And then Wednesday, I guess, and Thursday might get some of those, some showers and storms. And then hopefully back to the good stuff weekend. All right. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the Pulse of an H. Coming up this morning, we're going to have some more of our regulars, including Tom Raffio with some good news on a Monday. President and CEO of Northeast Delta Dental. We always have some good news on a Monday. And some of the other news talk we'll come back to in the next hour after we have Dennehy on at the top of the hour. We'll update you on what some of the news made Friday from the show, talking about our university system, what is likely to happen next. The trustees want to have one chancellor out of UNH Durham, sort of streamlining all 3 4-year universities. How's that going to proceed? We had some leaders in the state Senate who would have to approve that, who don't like it out of the gate. We'll tell you why. But there's a real transformation going on with our higher education in New Hampshire, where the demand is, and it's away from the 4-year universities, for better or for worse. It's just the reality of the marketplace, the cost. I think for a New Hampshire in-state student, all in, room and board and everything in Durham, without any scholarships or grants, I think the total package is in the mid-40s, $40,000 a year. And a lot of individuals and families just can't afford that and do that. And the enrollment is coming down. Plus the enrollment overall may be shrinking. So community colleges are booming. How do we transfer some of that growth in a synergistic way to help the universities? Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Again, we're looking at a beautiful start to our Monday. Jack Heath, J-Dog on the boards. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning, New England. Good morning, Maine. Good morning, regionally, nationally, worldwide. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Back in